And I have somehow accidentally started the transcription.
Oh no.
Okay, have that turned off. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tanya Riles. I'm the consultant for governance and management. I am filling in this morning for Joy Royland, who's not able to join us. Thank you very much for your patience with me. This is my first time starting the introductions for this. So again, just thank you for your patience. We are being joined this morning by Carmina Garciadealba for an introduction into Vermont 211. Vermont 211 has been helping and connecting Vermonters to health and human resources for 17 years. Carmina will help us learn exactly how Vermont 211 helps connect Vermonters to resources 365 days a year. This session will provide a 211 101 to help the helpers, which is you, with an opportunity to learn, ask questions, and become a 211 ambassador. Please feel free to pop any questions that you have into the chat. But other than that, I will go ahead and I will turn my camera and my mic off, and I will leave it to Carmina.
Thank you so much, Tanya, and good morning, everyone. I always look forward to this presentation every year, and so I'm really glad that all of you were able to join. As Tanya said, my name is Carmina. I'm an outreach specialist with Vermont 211. I cover the eastern half of the state, so the ongoing joke is, for better or worse, I am everywhere. But really excited to see folks on the screen. I'm assuming you're from different areas. And because we have such a small group, if you don't mind, we are going to do quick introductions just so I know where folks are coming from. And I also have one of my colleagues who is on today. If you feel comfortable putting on your camera for your introduction, that's great. Or the presentation if you'd like. And if not, that's okay too. So I'm going to start with my colleague and have him introduce himself. Adam.
Hi, good morning. My name is Adam. I am a database curator for Vermont 211. I've been here for almost 6 years. And I really enjoy what I do. And I have a dual certification and also an MLIS.
Thanks, Adam. So yeah, Adam has great partnerships and understanding with libraries, and he might be doing some of these presentations with all of you in the future. So folks, I'm going to call on you. If you aren't able to turn on your camera, you can feel free to use the chat as well, and just name maybe your position and where you're coming from. All right, so first I have Karen.
Hi, my name is Karen Gravlin. I am with the Vermont Department of Libraries, and I'm actually out here in Bradford today. So
Great. All right. So you're kind of in my neck of the woods. Awesome.
yeah.
Really nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Like,
Eric?
Hi there. My name is Eric Bonek. I'm currently the program assistant at Deborah Rawson Memorial Library in Jericho. Although I recently accepted a position at Heartland Public Library, so I'll be on the eastern side of the state soon.
Yeah, you'll be really close.
So I'll be all over the place too.
Awesome. Yeah, I have great partnerships with the Heartland Library, so very excited and great choice, although I'm sure your library is sad to be losing you. Cool. Well, thanks.
Yeah, it's two great places.
Exactly. Well, thanks for being here. Sue. Oh, looks like Sue's unmuted, but we can't hear her. All right, I'll go to the next person or maybe use the chat. Ariel.
Hi, I'm Ariel. I'm at Manchester Community Library and I'm a patron experience specialist. So yeah, here in Southern Vermont.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's see. Did I get everyone? I think so, other than Sue because we couldn't hear her or them. Okay, so Sue, we can't hear you, but that's okay. Again, maybe use the chat. Glad you're here. Okay, thank you for doing introductions. It's helpful to know where everyone is coming from. And, all of you shared, so I'll share a little bit about me and then we'll dive right in. As I said, my name is Carmina. I've been working with children and families in different capacities for almost 20 years, and a lot of that work has been in human services. I've been with Vermont 211 for the last 4.5 years, and I absolutely love it. I had been handing out the 211 RAC cards for a long time in my different roles, but I really didn't know what 211 truly offered until I started working here. And I'm very glad that I did. I'm incredibly passionate about sharing that information with others, which is why I do these presentations. And as an outreach specialist, I'm also at events. I'm attending community partner meetings related to health and human services, really being the eyes and the ears on the ground. And we'll get into some of the other roles that we have within our organization. But today we're going to start. I'm going to be giving you a little bit of the history of 211 and then talking about the 3 different ways that you can connect with us, and then also talking about future collaboration or how you can be a 211 ambassador. So that's our agenda for today. As Tanya said, please feel free to use the chat and ask questions. I do not mind being interrupted. I know for me, I have 2 times that I do things, now or never. So feel free to interrupt, raise your hand, unmute, whatever works best for you to ask those questions or to provide any comments that you have. I do want to catch us up a little bit because I see that another one of my colleagues has joined us, and also Sue put in the chat, sorry, thought I was unmuted. All right, and Sue is from Burlington. Awesome, South Burlington. Thanks for being here, Sue. It did look like you were unmuted, but for some reason it wasn't working. And Beth Burgess, we did introductions. If you would like to just introduce yourself very quickly, letting us know who you are, maybe where you're from and why you're here. And you can turn your camera on or you don't have to. Oh, maybe Beth Burgess isn't fully here yet. All right, Beth, I'll have you use the chat to introduce yourself, and I'll also talk briefly. Beth is another one of my colleagues, and she's hopping on just to view our presentation as well. So both her and Adam will be here. Okay, let me just get out of the chat. All right, so as I said, I had known about 211 for quite some time, but I really didn't know the extent of our program. Just really quickly using the reaction, or I can see Eric, or if folks want to use the chat, how many folks already know about 211 and or have used it? Okay, Eric's going like this, that's fine. We'll see if anyone else responds. That's totally okay. I've shared my experience with you. And it's actually quite common. I know a lot of Vermonters that still don't know about us. That's why I have my position as an outreach specialist, but we have been around for 17 years. It's also not much. Okay, thank you. I see some other people adding to the chat. Great, so this will be really new for some of you. Awesome. And Tanya's totally new for Tanya, great. So Tanya also shared with me, and I don't think she'll mind me sharing, that she's new to Vermont, and that is fine. We are going to talk about Vermont 211. However, there is a 211 in every single state, so it's just something to be aware of, especially for those of you who might be in a border town. We do have other states around us, so it is available. 211 is free information and referral regarding health and human services. Most 211s are connected to a United Way. So Vermont 211 is a program of the United Ways of Vermont. So you'll notice in my email that you'll be receiving that's who we are under. I do want to point out, sometimes I have folks that take notes during this, and that's totally fine. This is being recorded, and I will be sending out a follow-up email that will have all of the links that we go over, some sample reports, etc. So feel free to take your own notes, but also don't worry about rapidly getting that all down. I usually forget to say that until mid-presentation, so getting ahead of myself this time. So that's a little bit of the history of 211. As I said, it's free information and referral regarding health and human services. We are available 24/7, and you always talk with a live person. So we get a lot of questions about that, and it's really helpful, I think, for Vermonters to know that they'll be talking with a live person, and that it is available 24/7. So we're going to talk about the 3 ways that you can get connected to 211. The first way, and this is the most common way that people know, is by calling us. So we're part of an N11 system. So just like 911, 411, we have the 2. It's an easy number to remember. You just dial that and you can get connected with us. Oops, let me just X out of that. If for some reason someone gets a different 211, because sometimes that happens, maybe you're calling on a cell phone with a different area code, maybe you're really close to a bordering state, and so you get New Hampshire 211 or Massachusetts. If that happens, the 211 should be giving our 10-digit number, and I've also known some 211s to then try to transfer over. Those 2 10-digit numbers, for anyone who would like to jot it down, it is on our RAC cards if you have them, but the toll-free in Vermont is 866-652-4636, and outside of Vermont, it's the same number, but it starts with the area code 802. So if someone is having trouble calling or getting through to us, those are some different ways that they can try to get connected. And then lastly, something that's important to note is some cell phones are struggling to get through to 211. It's a nationwide issue that is being addressed. One of the hacks to get past that is by turning the Wi-Fi off on your phone and then dialing 211, or like I mentioned, maybe trying the 2 10-digit numbers. But just some things to be aware of. And I see the chat is going, so I just want to check. Are the folks people talk to in Vermont? Great question. So some of the folks are in Vermont. We do have some folks that are remote. So those are community resource specialists that are answering the phone. But we do have some folks that are out of state. Also, after a certain hour, we do have a partnership where other folks take over that line that are from a different state. But yes, most of my colleagues are in Vermont, which is really great. I forgot to mention that I am based out of Springfield. So even pre-pandemic, I have worked remotely and from home. And so that's my home base. But our office is in Essex Junction. And so that's where the majority of our contact center staff are, again, unless they're working remotely. But many of them do live in Vermont. So great question. So that's the first way to get connected, is by calling us. It's the way that most people know. We also have a texting option. So this is really, really great for folks who aren't comfortable calling. Even though it's anonymous and confidential, sometimes people prefer to text. I know a lot of the youth that I work with really love that texting feature and knowing that they can get connected to resources. And so some of your patrons might feel comfortable with that. Also, one of the best parts about libraries is that you offer Wi-Fi and have internet. And so if someone has run out of minutes, but maybe they can use Wi-Fi, they could then text us. So just something to keep in mind if folks are asking how to get connected. You text your Vermont zip code to 898-211. So as long as you're texting a Vermont zip code, you should be getting through to our community resource specialist through our texting option. That is available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So if someone texts outside of those business hours, you'll get an auto text letting you know. Oops, and I see Ariel has a question. Ariel. Yes, you text your Vermont zip code to 898-211. That is correct. So yep, that's the number that you would put in, and then the zip code is what you would put in as the message. So if it's outside of the hours, you will get an auto text. It will say when those hours are, and then a community resource specialist will get back to you. Great questions, though. So those are the 2 main ways that people know how to get connected. The third is by going to our website, which is vermont211.org, and Vermont is spelled out. I am going to share my screen and we'll go over there. We'll do a couple of examples. We'll use the homepage as our base to go over materials. Then we'll get into some of our partner programs. But before I jump over to that and start sharing my screen, does anyone have any additional questions? Yes, I can send that 10-digit number as well. So this is, I'm going to put the toll free first. And feel free to unmute as well if anyone has questions.
So what I was trying to ask was, for texting, can people also text using that 10-digit number, the 866 652?
No,
So it's
no.
only texting, it's only using the
The
898.
yes, the 898-211.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. I'll still put the numbers in the chat, that way they're documented as well. Two numbers. All right, I don't see any other questions or folks unmuting, so I am going to share my screen. I was sharing with Tanya that Teams has been a little bit challenging when sharing a screen, so apologies on that end. And usually I can only see one person once I do that. Eric, since you have your camera on, it's probably you, so thank you for being my buddy in this. All right, here we go. Okay, if someone could just let me know that you can see the 211 home screen.
Yep.
We can see it.
Okay,
That's
awesome.
great.
Thank you so much. And if for any point it pauses or you can't see it, just let me know, because that has happened as well. All right, so this is where we're going to spend our time, a lot of our time. As I said, the website is vermont211.org, and Vermont is spelled out. As I mentioned, we are a program of the United Ways of Vermont, so we have that here. We're also nationally accredited through AIRS, which is the Alliance of Information and Referral Systems. I like to point that out because one of the questions I often get is, well, how do you keep everything up to date, or how do you know what to do when it comes to information and referral? It isn't something that we made up. We do have standards and guidelines that we follow. All of our staff have gone through training through AIRS. So our data curators, which Adam on the call is, and also Beth, who wasn't able to introduce herself yet, but she has also gone through trainings, and they're part of our resource team. Our community resource specialists have also gone through trainings to make sure that they know what it takes when they're answering those calls, having a listening ear, the active listening, building rapport. They learn all of those skills in information and referral. And then even as an outreach specialist, I've taken some classes and courses through AIRS as well. So again, not something that we just made up. We follow national standards and guidelines. And if you're interested in more information, you can definitely go to the AIRS website. And again, that stands for the Alliance of Information and Referral Systems. Okay, so on the homepage, if you have ever been here before, you'll notice that right here in the center, we usually have pertinent and relevant information for whatever is going on in the world. So starting in 2020, in March, you would have seen a lot of information around COVID-19. We had links to the Department of Health, information about vaccines. A lot of that info was here. Prior to 2020, we typically had seasonal info or just helpful updates. We had information about cell phones not being able to get through, just so folks would know that when they first came here. We have this information right here. It's actually a really nice campaign video. It's about 1 minute long. So if you're feeling like you don't have the language to talk about 211 yet, maybe you have someone with you who's a visual learner, this is a great 1 minute video to show them and share, just giving a general overview of 211. Over here to the right, we have super helpful links. We have had this announcement just so folks are aware. When you call 211, there are several options. And so for a long time, we had option 2, which was for COVID Support Vermont. We also provide the after hours emergency housing for economic services, which we'll get into later. And so with those calls, we often see a high demand, especially October through March when it's very cold and people are looking for that housing. And so if that happens, a caller might get our voicemail. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are free, anonymous, and confidential. So we can't just call someone back. We can't look up their number, do something like that. So if they get our voicemail, that is the one time where they do need to share callback information. And so we need a first name and we need a phone number. It's incredibly disheartening when we have a caller give a very long-winded voicemail telling us what their need is, and then they don't share that information. So if you or someone you know says, oh, well, I left a voicemail and 211 didn't call me back, that could be the reason why. It's part of our confidentiality policy. But if you ever have trouble getting through to 211 or getting a call back, you can feel free to reach out to me, and our contact center managers are really good about getting to the bottom of it and trying to resolve those issues. So many of our community partners reach out with the highlights and the wonderful things that 211 does. And we do want to know about those challenges as well. It really takes our whole community, and that's the only way that we can get better. Okay, so just some important things to note. Under that, we have our seasonal resources. So again, based on the seasons, fuel assistance, flu, holiday programs, tax info. We've been very busy with tax season. All of those things that are really seasonally related, we have them all in one place, and we have that nice link over to the right. Underneath that, we have a link to Vermont Everyone Eats. Through the pandemic, we saw a major uptick in folks trying to access food resources. And so again, if you had been on our page, you would have seen the link to Vermont Everyone Eats, which has been extended to July 1st, really exciting. And then we also had a link to the Farmers to Families food distribution sites, again, making sure that Vermonters knew how to access that information quite easily. Okay, I'm going to come back over here and just refresh this. Now we're going to go over here to the left side of the screen. Again, if you had been on our page, you would have noticed that right here we did have a translation option. We are hoping to get that back, but actually during a presentation that I was giving, I noticed a little glitch in it, and so we did have to remove it. But it is something that we like folks to be aware of. When you are calling 211, we do have translation options. We use a program called TransPerfect. There are 170 languages and dialects. So as long as the caller can articulate that need, we are able to get the language or dialect. And similarly, we were able to translate our whole website into languages, different languages or dialects as well. So I'm hoping that that will come back sooner rather than later. But in case you're wondering why that's missing, that's why. Just a little glitch that we're hoping to get back. And the phone service is still available. All right, we're going to dive into our community resource directory. This is often the part that is most helpful to those that I'm working with and giving these presentations to. Before I do that, because I've done a lot of talking, I will pause and see if we have any immediate questions. And I cannot see the chat, so Tanya, if you could just let me know. Okay, I'm hearing none. So we're going to dive into the community resource directory. I've also been told I'm very thorough in these presentations, so it's okay if you don't have anything right away. Sometimes it takes a couple of days to digest, and that's fine. Okay, this is our community resource directory. There are 3 different ways to search. All of the terms that you see in here, we call them taxonomy terms. Again, following AIR standards and guidelines, it isn't a Google search. You can't just type in whatever you want. Our data curators work really hard to make sure that this is as up to date as possible. They do a fantastic job. And I'm not just saying it because they're on the call. I say this in every presentation. It's quite impressive what they do. And so we're going to dive into this and do a couple of examples. You'll notice up here that you can enter your zip code or a city or town. If you leave this part blank, it will give you all of those resources statewide, which maybe that's what you're looking for. But to be a little bit more specific, it is helpful to enter that. So if I could have someone volunteer a zip code, city, or town, that would be great. You can just unmute or use the chat.
We had a zip code volunteered.
Great.
05257.
That one. North Bennington. All right. Thank you. Great. We'll see what's available for North Bennington. So when you put the zip code in, if several towns share that zip code, you will see this give you a drop down so you can select the town that you're looking for. If we were typing in a town, similarly, if we had just put the N in, we would then see all of the different towns in the state that start with N, and you could select from there. And you'll notice the drop down as we go through this. All right, the first search we're going to do is category search. So these are our most popular categories. Again, when it comes to health and human service resources, I do want to highlight a couple of these before we dive in. One is the COVID-19 tab. We obviously created that because of 2020. Our resource staff were very, very busy trying to get that as up to date as possible. Things were moving super quick. And again, they did a fabulous job getting that. And I imagine we will have this tab for some time, even though some of those programs are no longer in existence. Scrolling down, we have the Youth tab. When I'm in many of my community partner meetings, I often hear that we don't have enough resources for youth. If we have them in our database, this is the place that you would find those. I also like to highlight this tab because 211 really is for everyone. Sometimes I'll hear folks say, oh, I thought only community service providers could call or those in the health and human service field, and that's not the case. Anyone who has the technology to contact us is welcome to call, text, or go on our website. It is our hope that all of Vermont's children have age-appropriate supervision, so hopefully we're not getting calls maybe from toddlers who can't really articulate their need. But again, I like to highlight that 211 really is for everyone. The other tab I want to highlight is our Veterans and Military tab. When you are calling and talking with one of our community resource specialists, they will be asking questions to make sure that they can connect you to resources that you are eligible for that will be the best fit. And so one of the clarifying questions that they should be asking is if you're a veteran or part of a military family, because that will open up a different set of resources for that population. Okay. So I mentioned on the homepage that we saw an uptick in folks trying to access food resources statewide. All of us need to eat, so I think we're going to use that as our first example. Again, this is for North Bennington. Once you click on the category food, you will see that it then breaks it down to subcategories. If we click again, it will then give us one more layer or an additional one under that. If you're unsure what one of these taxonomy terms means, there is a really small question mark next to them that you can click on. It will give you a general definition of that taxonomy term, and then you can make an informed decision about what you're looking for. So I clicked on food pantries, food lines, food vouchers. I'm going to click on food pantries again. And these are the results that we have for food pantries for North Bennington residents. So I'm less familiar with Bennington, so I'm not sure if this looks as accurate to you. But we have the North Bennington Baptist Church, St. John, Methodist Church, Community Center. There's actually quite a lot of options. This is great. So you'll notice that each of these results has basic information about the agency or program. Underneath that, we have this really great feature where it says click here for details. This is one of my favorite features in our community resource directory. So once you click on here, it will give you more information such as the area served, description, eligibility. This one doesn't have as many details as some of the other agencies. You might see others that will say documents required. It might have a point person listed that you can call. You'll see in some of the other examples what that might look like. It's also important to note how we update everything. People are like, we don't know how you do it. So as I mentioned, we have a whole team that's dedicated to this. They do an annual update, and so that date is listed right here. At the same time, if someone has an update for the database, every single agency has a login and password, and they can go in and make that update at any time. If they're not sure what that is, they can reach out to me. They can call 211, and we're happy to give them that information. They can also send updates directly to me, other outreach specialists, or again, by calling 211 and letting us know. If for some reason you're on here doing a search, you see that something isn't accurate or up to date, again, please, please, please reach out to us and let us know. Our team does a great job, and we also know that things can change quickly, and this is how we keep everything as up to date as possible. There's also different ways that you can share this information. The first one is printing. So if you were looking up some information on here, you wanted to share it with a patron, depending on your policy at your library, you could print it out, give it to them, and they would have that information. If you're like me, if I print something and it leaves my home, it's probably gone forever. So I really like our text and email option, where you can send the information directly to a cell phone as a text message, or you can also send it directly to an email address. Similarly, when you're calling, as long as you give a community resource specialist permission to send the information that way, they can also text or email it to the caller as well. So different ways that you can share that. Last but not least, we also have a map all feature. As many, if not most of us are aware, transportation can be a major barrier when trying to access resources. So I love this map all feature that lets us make an informed decision about where to get that resource. It isn't a map that we created. We cannot take credit for that. It is a Google map. However, it's been extremely helpful since we added it to our community resource directory, aiding Vermonters in making those informed decisions. Maybe they're like, oh, well, I know I'm going to be up near Shaftesbury that day for another appointment. So I'll also go to that food pantry. Or I know that there's public transportation on this route, so I can get there that day. Again, helping Vermonters make an informed decision on accessing those resources. And then when we're done doing that search, you can just click Start Over, and it will bring us right back here. We are going to do a keyword search and also an agency program name search, but again, I will pause briefly to see if there are any questions thus far or comments.
Ariel mentioned that it looks good and accurate in terms of places in the North Bennington area.
Awesome. Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, we'll go into a keyword search. So keyword is if you have an idea of what you're looking for, but maybe you're not 100% sure. We give a couple of examples. We have rent, support group, library, complaint. Again, as long as you start typing one of these keywords for what you're looking for, it will then do the drop down. You'll notice that the first one is rent. We have a major housing crisis in the state, so I think this is a good example to go with. If we type in rent, you will then see that it breaks it down by those subcategories as well. So the first one, because it might be hard for folks to read, is rent payment assistance. We then have rent payment assistance for at-risk families, COVID-19, recovery homes, halfway houses, sober living homes, and it goes on and on and on because rent is a really popular keyword in our database. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go with the first one, which is pretty broad, rent payment assistance. We then click search, and these are the results that we have for North Bennington residents. We have Greater Bennington Interfaith Community Services, Vermont State Housing Authority, Economic Services, and Jenna's Promise. Again, it gives us basic information about that organization, program, or agency, and then it also has the click here for details like we saw before. You can share the information by print, text, or email. I want to give one of these examples because it has a lot more details just for you to see. So some of these might have a much longer service description. I also chose this one to just show you that there are other services at this location. And so any agency that we have in here, if they have other services, that will be listed. And similarly, if they have other locations, those will also be listed. You can share the information through print, text, email, and you can also do the map all feature like we saw before. And then last but not least, we have the agency or program name search. This is if you know the name of the agency or program that you're looking for, and you just want those specific details like we saw in the other search results. As long as you have part of the name, you should be able to find it in our database. If it's in our database, I often use the example of the Upper Valley Haven in White River Junction, Hartford area. Most locals shorten it and call it the Haven. As long as we were getting that keyword in, we would then see all of the agencies we have in here that have Haven. We find Upper Valley Haven, which is what we were looking for. We click search. It will give us the general information about that agency. It will then show us all of the services that they have, and then you can click the here for details on each of those since we were looking for a really specific agency. Okay. Those are the 3 different ways to search. I want to highlight 2 tabs in here before we go. Whoops. So we have the top 25 searches for the current month. We serve as a barometer of needs in the state when it comes to health and human services, and so we do share that information right here on our website. You'll notice that we have a lot of folks searching for things related to food. Food lines, food pantries, food stamp applications. I think it's still on here, but home delivered meals was on here for a long time, and community meals was here for a long time. Obviously, tax prep is up there. This is for January and February, so I imagine with February and March or March and April, we might still see tax prep up here. Needle exchange distribution programs was on here for a while, and also sharps disposal was in the top 10 for a long time. Again, just an interesting way to see what folks are searching for and what the needs might be. And then last but not least, we have the ABC tab. And I like to show this for a variety of reasons. One, to show you how extensive our database is. Two, as a different way to search. And three, as a reminder of why 211 is here. So first and foremost, I'm just going to scroll a little bit so you get an idea. These are all the taxonomy terms and services that we have in here. I won't keep scrolling. One, because as you can see, it's quite extensive. And two, full transparency. Scrolling like that makes me a little queasy, but you get the idea. And then secondly, it's a different way to search, right? So you can enter a keyword. You will also have the little question marks next to all of the taxonomy terms, so you can get those general definitions that we saw earlier with the first example. And then last but not least, it's a reminder that 211 can be a starting point, and it can also be kind of that catch-all, right? So maybe you have a patron that you're talking to, they're too embarrassed to ask you a question about a resource, and so you can confidently say to them that they can call 211 24/7 and that it will be anonymous and confidential, and then they can find out whatever resource that they need. Or maybe it's outside of hours that they would have been able to go to your library. They remember that 211 can help them with resources, and so they give us a call. Many of you, again, if not all of you, know a lot of the resources in your town, or who to call or how to get connected. And at the same time, maybe you've exhausted all of those resources, all of those connections that you had. And so 211 could also be that ending point for you as well, to make sure that you've tried everything. Again, I've worked with children and families in Southeast Vermont for almost 20 years. I know a lot of the resources available. I work for 211, and I still tell people, but give our community resource specialists a call. They do this day in, day out. They're very skilled in what they do, and they may know of a resource that I don't know about, that could really help someone. And I've heard a lot of different success stories like that as well. So again, that's why I like to highlight the ABC tab, and to give folks other options. So I'm going to bring us back to the home page. Again, I'll pause and see if we have any questions before we go over two of our other tabs right here. Okay. So again, we were right here on this dark blue tab, Community Resource Directory. Underneath that, we have Read Our Newsletter. If you are not signed up for that yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. It comes out once a month. It's an e-newsletter, so it comes into your email account. It gives you an overview of the world of health and human services from a United Ways of Vermont standpoint and Vermont 211. Really great information, and also just some statistics as well about what's going on in health and human services. Underneath that, we have our statistical reports. There are several different ways that you can view this information. One, we have our web reports. So those of you who are into data and would like to do your own search, I think you'll find this particularly interesting. There's some information right here when you first click on that, but if you'd like to run your own report, you would just click on reports. There's different kinds of search types. I'm just going to click on service for now. The dates are already entered in here, but you can change those to the search that you would like to find. And then you can see what folks are looking for, right? We have total site visits, sessions, searches, and then it gives you those different resources that folks were looking for. Again, if you have not gone on our website, if and when you have the time, I encourage you to come onto this and give it some time and see what's really available. I know we're running out of time, so I'm not diving deep into the reports, but again, those of you who are interested in data, this is a really great resource. The other option you have is to see our contact summary report. So this is what folks are calling for, whether it's information and referral, information only. It is broken down by county, and as most of us know, that is not how our agencies work in this state. Things are rarely broken down by county. Service areas are typically not county-wide, but it is a cool way to see what's happening. We could click on one of these counties down here to then break it down and see the categories and subcategories for calls. So you'll see that the category will be here, some of the subcategories will be underneath, and then you can scroll down and see what folks have been calling for. If you have a specific need or you're interested in data for maybe a town or a couple of towns and not broken down by county, you can make those requests to me. One example that I have is there are hunger councils throughout the state that focus on food security through Hunger Free Vermont. They will often ask us to just focus on the food category. Maybe they want it for a specific region. For instance, the Windham Region Hunger Council is all of Windham County, but then a couple of Windsor County towns. And so I break that report down for them by all of those towns. Maybe they want to see what was happening in 2020, 2021, and 2022, and just the category food, right? Were folks looking for food stamp applications? Were they looking for those community meals or the home delivered meals that we saw? And they can see all of that data as well. We have a lot of agencies that reach out to us when they're writing grants, and they like to utilize that to demonstrate a need or compare it to other data. So happy to take those requests. Full disclosure, because she's on here, my colleague Beth Burgess helps out tremendously with those reports. She is a gem and really great at them. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you are just interested or need it for a specific purpose. So that was our 211 homepage. It's a lot of information. We have additional tabs on here. Again, please explore on your own time and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And similarly, if you've never called 211, texted us, I encourage you to do that as well. Maybe the question isn't, or the need isn't for you, but it's one that you regularly hear from your patrons. But just to get an idea so you can talk about it firsthand can be really helpful. I'm going to jump into one of our partner programs, but again, I'll pause before we leave the 211 website, see if we have any questions or comments.
Eric, did you have a question earlier?
I did, thanks. So my understanding is then that you are referring people to where they can find information, not necessarily answering their questions on, kind of live. Is that correct?
So
Or-
it could be both. I think it depends on what the question is, right? So that's why when we went into the statistical reports, you'll see that sometimes it's just offering information. So maybe someone's looking for their local library, right? And they just want to know what that address is or the phone number, but maybe they need some additional information as well. So it could be both.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'm always looking for the thing that falls outside of the sort of usual. So have you encountered any questions where it was like we can't do anything to help you with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, sometimes we have what we call an unmet need. And there's a couple reasons for that, right? So one, maybe the resource doesn't exist in the state. Two, maybe it isn't in our database because we do have an inclusion-exclusion policy, right? So we don't do for-profit. We do have agencies in here that are in other states because they serve Vermonters, but that's one of the clarifying facts. They need to serve Vermonters. And so those are a couple of reasons why there might be an unmet need. I strongly encourage folks to still call because we do record that data. And so, for instance, maybe we had 25 calls in Jericho, right, for one specific need. And then we could go to the town or we could go to community partners and say, hey, maybe this service does exist and we just don't know about it yet. Or maybe this service does need to exist and here's some data and why we think that. So really great point. But yes, there are times where there is an unmet need.
Great. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem. Great questions. Okay, I'm going to jump into Help Me Grow. All right, so their website is helpmegrowvt.org. As I mentioned earlier, when you call 211, you do have several options, and one of them is Help Me Grow. They specifically work with children and families, or families that have children 8 and under. It's 211 option 6 when you are calling us. They are available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They also have the texting option. So you can see down here, it's to that same number, 898-211, but you would text HMGVT. So not a zip code this time, but HMGVT. They have a very beautiful website. Strongly encourage you to explore it. If I were to highlight one of these tabs, it would probably be the Strengthening Families tabs. I do a lot of partnering with my local libraries, and so Help Me Grow has something called a Milestone Moments booklet. They're really great to have at your library and hand out. It gives you information about ages and stages and where children should be developmentally, depending on their age. And I found that families really, really like to have those, and it's nice to get a free book at the library that they can take home with them. So just something to be aware of. When you call Help Me Grow, it could be for a variety of reasons, right? Maybe you're looking for childcare. Maybe you need a new primary care physician. Maybe you're too embarrassed to ask someone you know about a question about your child's development. And so this is a really great resource where you can call, you can have that conversation with a child development specialist, get that question answered. And just like our 211 community resource specialists, the child development specialists that Help Me Grow are providing that active listening. They're seeing if there are other needs in the home. They're building that rapport. And so if they need to make a referral, they do have access to our 211 database. And so they could answer the child development question and then provide a referral for food, right? Or maybe they need fuel assistance. Maybe they're looking for some legal help. And so that's a really great partnership that we have with them and can provide those resources. They also then have additional resources in their database specifically for children and families. So really great program, again, that many Vermonters still don't know about. And I think that could be really useful sharing with your patrons. Last but not least on this page, I do want to show the refer option. So as long as you have a parent or guardian's permission, you would enter their information right here. You would enter your information, the reason for the referral, checking off that you have that permission, and then submitting it. It goes to Help Me Grow. A child development specialist will gather the information and then contact that family. So that is one part of Help Me Grow that's extremely helpful, is they do try to make contact multiple times because they do have this information, unlike with 211. So if you feel comfortable making that referral, that is something that you could do. Again, another example that I've seen in libraries is they will have one computer that has either 211 and or Help Me Grow just up on their web browser. Or some libraries, I think it was Michigan, had a 211 corner where just one computer was dedicated to 211 so they could look up information and get connected that way. So just different ways that you can utilize that. All right, we have two more programs that I'm going to go over, and then I'll stop sharing. We'll take some more questions and then sum it up with some collaboration ideas. All right, next I want to share Single Care. This is for anyone who doesn't have insurance or if their prescription isn't covered. You can use a Single Care card at your local pharmacy and potentially get up to 85% off your prescription. The average is 35 to 45% off. I have heard mixed reviews. I've never personally used it. Some people have said this is the only way that I could afford my prescription, and other people have said I just have one of those prescriptions where it's never going to be covered by a discount like this. It is a nationwide program. It's connected with United Way, which is why we share about it. It is a drop down, just like the 211 website. So you can type in the prescription name. I'm just going to use an example that's right here. One of my last presentations was in Windsor, so the zip code's right here, but you could change the zip code to wherever you are. It will then show you which pharmacies have it, compare the prices, and then you can get a free coupon. You can print, text, or email this, just like we saw before. And I also have these cards as well if you need some at your library. But just another resource and tool that a lot of folks aren't aware of. It was formerly called FamilyWise, so if you see those cards bopping around, that's why. If you go to the FamilyWise website, it will bring you right to Single Care, and you should still be able to use those cards at the pharmacy. If you're unsure, I always tell people just try it because you never know. And again, just another great resource. Last but not least, CARE. This is the Citizens Assistance Registry for Emergencies. It's an E911 program. It's for anyone who has a quote unquote special circumstance in an emergency. We do have the paper copies of this on occasion. They are really pushing for folks to register online. But if you have a printer, you can go right here and find the form. Those special circumstances could be that you're deaf, hard of hearing, on oxygen, in a wheelchair, have a service animal. All of the reasons are listed right here. You would fill this form out, get it back to 211. We enter it into the E911 database, and in an emergency, first responders would have access to that information to make an informed decision in that emergency. It is not a VIP list. It does not mean that you will get help first. It just allows folks to make a more informed decision during that emergency and know what some of your special circumstances might be. So again, they're really pushing for folks to register online. However, you could print this out and have it at your library. And sometimes we have the paper copies and could provide you with some of those as well. But really useful tool that a lot of people don't know about. All right, I'm going to stop presenting. Feel free to turn on your cameras if you would like. If you don't feel like it, that's okay too. I know a lot of us have some virtual meeting fatigue. Okay. Additional questions, comments, suggestions, feedback?
Eric put a question in the chat. I believe it was related to the prescription drugs,
Yep,
asking if it was only for the uninsured.
Or if your prescription isn't covered by your insurance. Yep, great
Great.
question. Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. And all of that information is also on the website or the cards. And I forgot to detail that. The website is singlecare.com. And again, I'll be sharing those links as well, and similarly for care in my follow-up email. Okay, any other questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions? Okay.
I just wanted to share that I thought the reports were so helpful. I really appreciated you showing that, because I can see that being so helpful for anybody doing any type of programming decisions for their library.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
really thought that was great.
Awesome. I'm glad that was helpful. And I will be sharing some sample examples in my follow-up email, because I know it's hard to, request a report when you're not really sure what you're requesting. So I'll provide that as well. Awesome. Thank you for the comments in the chat. I'm glad that it's helpful. Yeah, no problem. Okay, I have one last piece and we'll sum it up. We might even end a little bit early, which is always exciting for everyone. So the last piece that I talk about during my presentations is collaboration and how we can partner together. I gave some specific examples as we were going through, but just a couple more to sum it up. So one thing that I do in my personal life and then brought to 211 is something called Happy Bags. It's just a fun way of sharing resources. For me, it was with different girlfriends where we would drop off a gift or maybe something we're not using anymore, whatever it may be. You put it in a bag, you drop it off, surprise, maybe not a surprise. And so we started doing something similar at 211. And so it's literally a paper bag or a plastic bag, and I'll take my blur off and show you those in a moment. But it's filled with 211 resources and then maybe some fun items, right? So the thought behind it is everyone has rack cards. Everyone has things that they need to do. And instead of giving someone one more rack card or another have to, you're really giving them a gift. And so we've seen that people are much more receptive and open to getting a happy bag than maybe another rack card. And so again, it's just our fun way of sharing resources. There are still rack cards in it, but I'm just going to show those examples. And so one thing that I've done is had these readily available at local libraries. I've come and given presentations at libraries to be able to hand them out, maybe coming for a story time or another program that's happening. And so those are all ways that you could utilize us or hand out the materials. Many libraries also just have the rack cards on hand. If you have like a little section for resources and information, that's where we put them. Or if you have information packets when you're signing up a new patron. So this is the bag. It says 211 on it. It's paper. We also have the smaller version, which comes in a little plastic bag. They have the rack cards, but we also might include a magnet or a pen or a bookmark, either from us or partner agencies. And then another small version is the care cup. So it's in a stadium cup. It has the information. Sometimes I might put like a little candy in there, or, you know, just something fun for folks. So those are all of the different materials we have. I do have a menu that I created, and so I'll be sending that in the follow-up email to give you a better idea. And like I said, we're happy to offer these presentations at your library, either virtually or in person. I also do a lot of one-on-ones with new volunteers or staff. So if you have someone, we can do it one-on-one. You can share this recording. And then the last piece is we attend many events as outreach specialists, right? So whether it's community health fairs or fall flings or whatever it may be. And so my fun way of doing that, I wear a lot of hats, but my favorite is definitely my crown. And so I'm Queen of the Fairies. I literally dress up as a fairy, full costume and makeup. And I grant wishes for kids and adults. We have fairy dust, it's a whole thing. They get a 2-on-1 bag or a care cup or whatever we decide to hand out. But specifically, I have partnered with libraries in my area, and it's been a truly magical experience that has engaged families in a way that we couldn't quite do the same, right? I can be engaging as Carmina, but I'm really engaging as Queen Carmina. So Joy and I wanted to offer that specifically to all of you statewide. And so if it's something you're interested in, we're trying to prioritize that for this year. Personally and professionally, I think libraries are vital to our communities. I work per diem at my local library, and they just have a really big part in my heart, and also at a civic level in our communities. So offering that to all of you, I will be putting my email address in the chat. When I send out that follow-up email, I will have the information that we shared about today, the links, the reports, the menu for the materials and items, and then also contact info for other outreach specialists in your area. I do cover a wide area, but there are other outreach specialists. And I unfortunately will be leaving 2-on-1 at the end of April. So hoping to stay connected, we'll still be offering the ferry service and connecting folks to 2-on-1 materials, but just something for all of you to be aware of. So that is all I have. I will finally stop talking. Again, I'll leave it for any last minute questions, comments, suggestions, or thoughts. Okay, I hope this was helpful for all of you. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Very much appreciated hearing your presentation. And I see a lot of people in the chat are concurring. So yes,
Thank you
thank
all
you.
so
Very,
much.
very helpful.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone.
Sure.